The pickup truck stopped on the snow-blind mountain road and Royce Meade leaned across the cab. He did not look at 22-year-old Maren Whitfield. He looked at the bundle inside her coat where 9-month-old Eli was sleeping. "Out," he said. Maren stared at him. "What? You heard me, out both of you, now." He reached past her and shoved the passenger door open. The cold came in like something with teeth. "Royce, please, the baby, he doesn't want either of you," Royce said. And the words were not his words. They were the words of the woman who paid him. "Get out, Maren, don't make me put you out." She climbed down. The door slammed. The tail lights turned red, then small, then nothing at all in the white. Before we go any further into Maren's story, I want to ask you something from the bottom of my heart. If you believe a mother should never be left in a storm with her baby, no matter what she has done or who she has married, hit that subscribe button right now and ring the bell so you don't miss a single chapter of this story. Tell me in the comments tonight what city you are watching from, because I want to know where every kind soul is sitting as we walk through this storm with Maren. Stay with me until the very last word. You won't regret it. Maren stood in the middle of the road for a long time before her legs would move. The wind had already eaten the sound of the truck. There was nothing now but the steady hiss of snow blowing across the gravel and the small, warm weight of Eli inside her coat. She kept staring at the place where the taillights had been. She kept waiting. She was waiting for the brake lights to come back on. She was waiting for Royce to turn the truck around and roll up beside her and say it had been a joke, a test, that Mrs. Pierce had only wanted to scare her. That they were going home now. The brake lights did not come back on. The snow filled the tire tracks in less than a minute. After 2 minutes, there were no tire tracks at all. "He's coming back," Maren whispered into the top of Eli's wool cap. Her voice did not even disturb the wind. "He's coming back. He has to come back." But Diane Pierce had told Royce a lot of things over the last 3 months. None of them had turned out to be a joke. Maren pressed her cheek down against the small, warm dome of her son's head. She would not cry. She had learned a long time ago that crying did not bring back mothers in the ground, did not put food on the table, did not soften the heart of a woman who had decided from the first day that you were not the kind of person she wanted near her son. So she did not cry. She turned in a slow circle in the road like a person looking for a door in a wall she could not see, and she tried to figure out where on this mountain she was. There was nothing. No fence line, no mailbox, no power pole, just the pines on one side, leaning under the weight of new snow, and on the other side a long white drop down into more pines. The road went 2 ways. She could not tell which way was up. She lifted the quilt a little inside her coat to check him. Eli was sleeping. His small mouth opened just slightly, his breath warm against the inside of her wrist. The quilt was the only good thing she still owned. Her mother Rose had sewn it the spring Maren was born, 22 years ago, in the apartment over the bakery on 2nd Street. The quilt was made of small scraps of fabric, dozens of them, each one a wildflower print Rose had cut from the dresses of women in the church and stitched together by hand. Bluebells, lupin, Indian paintbrush, forget-me-nots. Her mother had finished it the week before Maren was born and laid it across the foot of the crib. 22 years later, the quilt was the only thing of roses that Maren had managed to take with her when Diane Pierce sent the man to her door 3 days ago and told her to pack a small bag, just a small one, sugar, just enough for the baby. "We are going somewhere to talk, Sugar." Diane only called her Sugar when she had already decided something. Maren tucked the quilt back inside her coat and started walking. She did not know which way. She only knew that standing in the road meant freezing faster. And Eli weighed 9 pounds at his last visit, and the wind on this ridge was the kind of wind that took the heat out of a body in less time than it took to count to 100. 3 years ago, the snow in Wyoming had looked like a postcard. Back then, she had a mother. She had an apartment over a bakery on 2nd Street and a job at the diner 3 blocks down, and a small life she had built around 2 shifts and her mother's bread on Sundays. Then her mother had gotten sick. Then her mother had died. Then a man named Spencer Pierce had walked into the diner on a Tuesday in October with hands too clean to belong to anyone who worked for a living. And he had ordered a coffee and a slice of pie, and he had told her she had eyes like his grandmother's. She had been 20. She had been buried. She had taken him at his word. Maren walked. The snow was over the top of her boots inside of 10 minutes. Her jeans were wet to the knees inside of 20. She did not let herself look at the sky. She did not let herself look at the pines. She looked at the next 10 feet of road and she walked it, and then she looked at the next 10 feet and she walked that. 1 foot, then the other. That was what her mother used to say. 1 foot in front of the other, baby. The Lord knows your name. He has not forgotten it. Walk, she walked. The cornbread of her old life kept rising in her throat in pieces. The first time Spencer hit her had been 6 weeks after the wedding. He had been drinking. He had apologized in the morning and bought her a silver bracelet she had not wanted. The second time he hit her, she had been carrying Eli, 4 months pregnant, and he had not apologized at all. The night he died, 3 months ago. He had been driving alone on the highway out of Jackson at 1 in the morning with a bottle between his knees, and the truck had gone off at the curve by the river. The funeral had been 3 days later. Diane Pierce had not spoken to her at the graveside. Diane Pierce had only looked at Eli in his car seat the way a person looks at a piece of property that has been left to the wrong heir. 2 days after the funeral, the lawyers had come. Spencer was the only son. Eli was the only grandchild. There was a trust. There was a great deal of money. There was a house on a lake. There was a name. Diane had not raised her son to lose his name to a waitress, so Diane had played a long game. She had been kind for almost 3 months. She had brought groceries. She had brought a crib. She had brought a nanny Maren did not want. And then on Sunday she had sent Royce Meade to the front door of the small rented house on Birch Street. And she had said, "Pack a bag, sugar, just for the night. There are some papers I want to go over with you and I would like to do it somewhere private." Maren walked. She did not know how long she had been walking. Time did not work right when the cold got into the bone. Her feet had stopped hurting, which was bad. She had read somewhere that when feet stopped hurting in the cold, it meant the body had begun to choose. The body chose what to keep warm. The body chose what to let go. The body would not let go of Eli. The body would let go of feet first. 1 foot, Maren whispered. The words were thick. Then the other. She tripped on a frozen ridge in the gravel and went down hard on one knee. The pain was the first real thing she had felt in an hour. It almost made her laugh. She gathered Eli against her chest and stood up, and she kept walking, a long way down the road. Where the road bent around a stand of pines and dropped toward a lower meadow, 2 yellow headlights appeared in the snow. Jonas Reeve was 47 years old, 6'1", and he had been driving the road between his ranch and the feed co-op in Pinedale 4 days a week for 19 years. He knew this road in the way you know a hallway in your own house in the dark. He knew where the elk crossed in October. He knew where the snow drifted first. He knew where the road dipped just enough that a man not paying attention could put a wheel off the shoulder and end up nose down in a culvert. He was paying attention tonight. Because the storm had come in earlier than the weather had said it would, and he was not in a hurry, but he was not crawling either. He had a load of grain and 3 salt blocks in the bed of his truck and a thermos of coffee on the dash. And his housekeeper, Hattie Greer, had told him before he left that morning that if he was not home by dark she would come look for him herself. And he had said, "Yes, ma'am." And she had said, "Do not yes, ma'am me Jonas Reeve, I mean it." He was thinking about Hattie's biscuits when the headlights caught a shape in the road. He took his foot off the gas. He did not hit the brakes hard, because hard brakes on this road in this snow was how a man ended up upside down in the ditch. He let the truck coast. The shape did not move. It was not an elk. It was not a coyote. It was the wrong color and the wrong height. It was a person. Jonas pulled the truck over and set the brake and got out into the wind. The shape was still in the road. He walked toward it. The wind whipped his coat back. He had been a tall man since he was 16, and the years on the ranch had not bent him. And his boots were the kind of boots that did not slip on ice that other boots slipped on. 12 feet away, he saw it was a young woman. 12 feet away, he saw she was holding something to her chest. 6 feet away, he saw the something was a baby. He stopped. He took one long breath. Then he closed the last 6 feet in the way you close the last few feet to a horse that has been hurt and may yet kick. "Ma'am." The young woman lifted her head. Her face was white. Her lips were the color of slate. Her eyes were brown and tired and far away. "Ma'am, I'm Jonas Reeve. I own a ranch up off this road. Can you tell me your name?" she tried. Her mouth moved. No sound came out. He did not ask twice. He did not waste breath. He bent down and he took the baby out of her arms first, because the baby was what she would protect and the baby was what he had to get warm. "Come on now. Come on. Up, up you come." She came up. She did not have the strength to come up on her own, but she came up because he lifted her, one arm under her elbow, the other holding the baby tight against his coat. He walked her to the truck. He put her in the passenger seat. He put the baby in her lap and he wrapped his own coat around the two of them and he turned the heat on full and he closed the door and he walked around to the driver's side and he got in. He did not drive down the mountain. The hospital in Pinedale was 31 miles. His ranch was 4. He drove up. He picked up the CB handset bolted under his dash. "Hattie." "Go ahead, Jonas." "I've got a young woman and a baby in the truck. Found them in the road. She is bad cold. The baby I can't tell yet. Get the back bedroom ready. Get the stove hot. Heat some water. Send Wade to the barn for the small electric heater out of the foaling stall. Move." There was 1 second of silence on the line. Then Hattie said, "Yes." Jonas put the truck into gear. He looked once at the young woman beside him. She had her face down against the top of the baby's head. She was breathing. The baby was breathing too. He could see the small puff of it on his sleeve. "Stay with me." "Ma'am," he said, "you stay with me. We are 4 miles from a warm kitchen and the kindest woman I have ever known. You hear me? You stay with me." She did not answer, but she did not let go of the baby either. Jonas drove. The kitchen at Reeve Hollow was the warmest room Maren had been in since her mother died. The first thing she registered was the smell. Bread, fresh. Not the burnt toast smell of the Pierce house, but real bread, yeasty and warm. The kind of smell that lived in her mother's apartment on Sunday mornings. The second thing she registered was a hand on her cheek that was rough and dry and warm. "Open your eyes, child. There you go. You with me?" Maren opened her eyes. A woman in her late 60s was sitting on the side of a wide bed in a small bedroom with white walls and a single window. The woman had iron-gray hair pinned up tight, and she was wearing a flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled to the elbows. And she had the kind of face that did not waste itself on smiling unless smiling was earned. Where Maren tried, her voice came out a whisper. "Where is right here?" The woman reached down beside the bed and lifted a small bundle wrapped in a clean blue blanket. Eli's face was pink. Eli's eyes were open. Eli was looking at the woman the way babies look at people who have been kind to them for hours while they slept. "He is fine. He is good. He took a bottle 2 hours ago and he took another one an hour ago and he has been sleeping mostly and he is fine. You hear me, honey? He is fine." Maren reached for him. Her hands were shaking. The woman did not hand him over right away. She helped Maren sit up first. She put a pillow behind her back. Then she laid Eli in her arms and Maren held him against her face and she did not cry, because she had not cried in 3 years. But she held him for a long time without speaking, and the woman in the flannel shirt did not say a word. "My name is Hattie Greer," the woman finally said. "I have kept house for Mr. Reeve on this ranch for 19 years. You have been asleep for 14 hours. You came in last night in a storm. Mr. Reeve found you on the road. Do you remember any of that? Some. What is your name, honey? Marin Whitfield. And the baby? Eli. Eli. Hattie said it the way a person says a name that has been waited for. All right, Eli, welcome to Reeve Hollow. Marin looked around the room. The walls were white. The window had a checked curtain. On the wall above the small dresser was a small wooden cross on a leather cord, hanging from a finishing nail. The cross was not bigger than her thumb. It had been worn smooth in the middle the way wood gets worn when a child has held it in his hand a great many times. She did not ask about the cross. Not yet. On a chair by the door she saw it, folded, clean, dry, the wildflower quilt. She made a small sound. Hattie looked over. Yes, Hattie said. Mr. Reeve hung it by the stove last night to dry. I washed the road dirt out this morning. The seams are good. Whoever made that quilt knew what she was doing. My mother. Your mother had hands, honey. Marin swallowed. She did. A knock at the doorframe. Marin looked up. A tall man stood there. She remembered the voice first, the way you remember a voice in a dream, and then she remembered the eyes. Brown and tired, and the kind of brown that did not look away when a person needed to be looked at. Ma'am, Jonas Reeve said, I would not bother you yet, but I have a question I need to ask, and the longer we wait the worse it gets. May I come in? She nodded. He came in. He did not sit on the bed. He took the small wooden chair from beside the dresser, and he turned it around, and he sat on it backwards with his arms folded across the top rail, and he was a tall man making himself small. Miss Whitfield, do you have somebody we ought to call? Your husband, your family, anybody? She closed her eyes. No, sir. He waited. My mother is dead, sir, 2 years. My husband is dead, sir, 3 months. I do not have any family left to me. And the person who put you on the road last night, she opened her eyes. She looked at him. He did not look away. My husband's mother, sir, Diane Pierce. She paid a man named Royce Meade to drive me up there and leave me. She wants my son. Jonas Reeve did not move for a long time. Then he stood up. He set the chair back where he had found it. He looked at Hattie. Hattie, would you stay with Miss Whitfield and the baby? There is a phone call I need to make. Go on, Jonas. He went out. Marin heard his boots on the wood floor, slow and steady, down the hall. She heard him pick up the phone in the next room. She did not hear what he said. Hattie reached over and laid one hand on her knee through the blanket. Honey. Hattie said, I have known that man 19 years. There is something you ought to know about him before this gets any longer. Yes, ma'am. His wife and his little boy died in a hospital fire 8 years ago this March. The boy was 4. His name was Caleb. The cross on the wall there was his. Marin looked at the cross. Mr. Reeve has not opened this room in 8 years, Hattie said. I want you to understand that. The bed you are sitting on, that was Caleb's bed. The curtain on that window, that was his curtain. Last night when Mr. Reeve called me on the CB and told me to ready a room for a woman and a baby, he did not say which room. I started for the guest room. He said no, Hattie, the back. He said the back. Marin looked down at Eli sleeping in her arms. I do not know yet what kind of woman you are, honey, Hattie said. I do not know how much trouble you have got following you up that mountain, but I will tell you this. That man has not opened the back bedroom in 8 years, and last night he opened it. You are in it. So whatever comes next, you are not in it alone. Marin held her son and she looked at the cross on the wall and she did not say anything for a long while. Then she said, Yes, ma'am. And Hattie said, Yes. The days after the storm went slow and they went steady. And that was the first thing Marin had not had in 3 years, slow and steady. She woke each morning to the smell of bread. She came down the hallway and borrowed wool socks and a flannel shirt of Hattie's that came past her wrists. And she sat at the long pine table in the kitchen, and Hattie put coffee in front of her, and a bowl of oatmeal with brown sugar and butter. and Eli sat in a high chair that had been pulled out of the storage barn the second day and wiped down and oiled and set at the corner of the table. The high chair had been Caleb's. Nobody said so. Maren knew anyway. She learned the rhythms. Wade Boone, the old ranch hand, was at the kitchen door at 6 every morning and gone again by 6:15, with a thermos and 2 biscuits in a brown paper sack. Wade was 72. He had worked at Reeve Hollow since before Jonah's Reeve was born. He did not speak much, but on the third day he handed Maren a small carved wooden horse he had whittled out of a piece of pine, no bigger than her thumb, and he said, "For the boy," and she said thank you, and he said, "I had a son." And that was all he said for the whole rest of the week. Jonah's she saw less. He was up before light and gone to the high pasture before she came down the hall. He came back at noon for a quick meal and was out again. He came home in the evening and he washed his hands at the kitchen sink and he ate Hattie's supper without much conversation, and he was kind to Eli without being effusive about it. He did not pick Eli up. He did not try. He passed him a spoon at supper time. He let Eli reach for the brim of his hat. By the 5th day, Maren was helping Hattie in the kitchen. By the 7th day, she was kneading bread herself. On the 8th day, she walked out to the barn with Wade to see the new colt, and she stood at the rail with Eli on her hip, and the colt came over to sniff at her hand, and Eli laughed. She had not heard him laugh in 3 months. She walked back to the house with the small wooden horse in her pocket and the colt's breath still on her palm. And she did not know yet that down in Pinedale, 14 miles below them on the mountain road, Diane Pierce had been awake all night reading a folder. Diane Pierce was 63 years old, and she had not failed at anything since 1979. She sat at the long mahogany desk in the study of the Pierce house in Pinedale, and she turned the pages of the folder her attorney had assembled for her, and her face did not move. She had not been told yet that Maren and the baby had been picked up off the road. She had assumed for 48 hours that the matter was finished. Then on Tuesday morning Royce Meade had come to the back door of the house with his cap in his hands and his eyes on the floor, and a piece of information she had not wanted to hear. "Mrs. Pierce, ma'am, the girl, I drove back up that road this morning. I drove the whole length of it. There is no body, ma'am. There is no body off the shoulder. There is nothing." "You are certain?" "I went 2 miles past where I left her." "There is nothing, ma'am." Diane Pierce had looked at Royce Meade for a long moment over the rim of her teacup. Then she had set the cup down. "Royce." "Yes, ma'am. Find out where she is. You have until Friday." By Thursday afternoon, Royce Meade had it. A man at the co-op had loaded grain into the bed of a truck for Jonah's Reeve on the afternoon of the storm. 2 days later, the same man at the co-op had seen Jonah's Reeve buy formula and diapers. The co-op clerk had not thought anything of it at the time. He thought something of it now. By Thursday evening, Diane Pierce knew where her grandson was. She did not call the police. The police would mean a custody question, and the custody question would mean a judge, and the judge would mean Maren on a witness stand telling stories about her late son that Diane Pierce did not want told. The police would mean an investigation into Royce Meade, and Royce Meade would mean an investigation into her. The police were not the path. The path was the newspaper. The path was the court of opinion. The path was a long, careful, public story about an unstable young mother who had vanished in a storm 3 weeks ago in the depths of her grief, and a reclusive rancher who had taken her and her child up onto an isolated property without informing law enforcement, and a grandmother who had been quietly searching ever since. Diane Pierce called her attorney at 8 o'clock Thursday night. "Stewart, we are filing for emergency custody Monday morning. Get me a hearing on the docket inside 3 weeks. I want Judge Voss if Voss is available. I want it leaked to the Pinedale Tribune by Sunday night. The story is grief, instability, and a man with a history I do not wish to discuss publicly. You understand the tone?" "Yes, Mrs. Pierce." "And Stewart?" "Yes, ma'am." Royce Mead is not to be part of this. Royce Mead was never on that road. Royce Mead does not exist. Understood. She set the phone down. She took a long sip of her tea. The tea had gone cold. She did not call it back. Deputy Sam Foster drove up to Reeve Hollow on a Tuesday afternoon in the third week of March, and he did not turn on the lights of his cruiser, because Sam Foster and Jonas Reeve had been hunting and fishing together for 30 years. And Sam Foster knew that what he was about to deliver was not the kind of thing a man wanted his neighbors to see arrive with flashing lights. Jonas met him on the porch. "Sam, Jonas, come on in. Hattie has coffee." "I cannot stay, Jonas." Sam Foster did not take off his hat. He reached into the inside pocket of his coat and he pulled out a folded set of papers. "I am sorry, brother." Jonas took the papers. He did not open them on the porch. He waited. "Emergency petition for custody," Sam said. "Filed yesterday morning out of the Pierce attorney's office. Hearing is set for the 7th of April in Pinedale. Judge Voss." "Voss? Yeah, I know." "Sam. Who at the courthouse let that get assigned to Voss?" "Brother, I do not have an answer for that you are going to like." Jonas nodded slow. "There is more," Sam said. "The Tribune is running a piece in tomorrow's edition. I heard it from Polly at the diner. The piece says you have been keeping the Pierce grandchild up here without informing law enforcement. It uses the word harboring. It mentions the fire." Jonas's jaw tightened. He did not say anything for a long moment. "All right," he said finally. "Jonas, listen to me. I know what kind of woman she is. The county knows, but she has got money and she has got a name and she has got the paper. You are going to need a lawyer who is meaner than her lawyer. I have got a name." "Who?" "Adelaide Mercer." Sam Foster let out a short breath through his nose. "Mercer is retired. Mercer owes me one. Mercer owes nobody one. Mercer collects." "Mercer owes me one, Sam." Sam looked at him for a long moment. All right, then you call Mercer tonight. You drive to Cheyenne tomorrow. You do not let her tell you no on the phone. You go to her door." "I plan to." "And Jonas." "Yes. You tell that girl in there what is coming. Do not let her read it in the paper." "I would not let her read it in the paper, Sam." Sam tipped his hat. He got back in the cruiser. He drove down the long gravel drive. And the dust was still settling when Jonas walked back inside the kitchen and closed the door behind him. Marin was at the sink with Eli on her hip. She had flour on her forearm. She looked at the papers in Jonas's hand and her face went still. "Sit down, Miss Whitfield." She sat down at the long pine table. He sat down across from her. He laid the papers between them. He did not open them. He laid one hand flat on top of them. "She has filed for custody," he said. "Hearing is in 3 weeks. There is going to be a piece in the paper tomorrow that says I am holding your son up here against your will and against the law. None of that is true. None of it matters to her. What matters to her is that the judge is in her pocket and she has the bigger lawyer and the louder paper. You hear me?" Marin did not answer for a long moment. She held Eli tighter against her chest. Her hand was shaking the way it had shaken in the road 3 weeks ago. "She's going to take him," Marin said. "Mr. Reeve, she is going to take him." "No, ma'am, you don't know her. I know her kind." "Mr. Reeve, listen to me, Miss Whitfield." Marin looked up. "There is no person on God's earth who is taking your son out of this house. Not while there is breath in me. Not while there is breath in Wade. Not while Hattie is standing. You understand? She is going to have to come up that mountain through me, and she is not coming up that mountain through me. That is my word. And in this country, my word is the only thing I have ever asked a man to take me on." Marin's lip trembled. She did not cry. She had not cried in 3 years. She did not cry now. "Yes, sir," she said. "All right," Jonas said. "Now I am going to drive to Cheyenne tomorrow. I am going to come back with a lawyer. Hattie is going to stay with you. Wade is going to stay with you. There is no soul on this property that means you harm, and there is no soul on this property that does not answer to me. You hear?" "Yes, sir." He stood up. He set his hand on the back of her chair, like a man setting his hand on the rail of a fence he did not want to bend. Then he picked up his hat from the table and he went out. Adelaide Mercer was 71 years old and she had been retired for 4 years, and she did not take cases anymore, and she had told the man at the door so when she opened it. Then she had looked at his face and she had stepped aside and let him in. She poured him coffee. She poured herself coffee. She sat down in a leather chair in a study lined with law books in a small house on the west side of Cheyenne, and she looked at Jonas Reeve over the rim of her cup. "You did not call ahead, Jonas." "I would not have, ma'am. You would have said no." "I will say no anyway." "No, ma'am, you will not." She set the cup down. She had a face that did not waste itself like Hattie's, and she had iron-gray hair clipped short. And she had hands that had spent 44 years in courtrooms. "Tell it," she said. "Short." He told it short. He told it in the order it had happened. He did not embroider. He did not explain. When he was done, she was quiet for a long minute. "Voss," she said finally. "Yes, ma'am." "Voss is in her pocket." "Yes, ma'am." Voss has been in her pocket since 2011, when she paid for his daughter's law school in exchange for what he thought was a favor and what was actually a leash. "You are aware." "I am now, ma'am." "All right. I will tell you what we are going to do, Jonas Reeve. We are not going to fight her on the question of whether the girl is fit. That is the field she wants to fight on. We are going to fight her on the question of how the girl came to be in that road in the first place. We are going to walk into Voss's courtroom with the answer to that question. We are going to walk in with the man who drove the truck. And we are going to walk in with what that man knows, and we are going to walk in with proof of what kind of son she raised. By the time we are done, the question of fitness is not going to be a question Voss can ask. You understand me?" "Yes, ma'am." "I will need 11 days. I will need access to the girl. I will need her medical records, every one of them, from the day she married that man. I will need the names of every coworker who saw a bruise. I will need her mother's old address. I will need the man who drove the truck, Royce Meade. Find him, bring him to me. He is the linchpin." "Yes, ma'am." "And Jonas." "Yes. My fee for this case is $1. Do not insult me with more." He took out his wallet. He laid a single dollar bill on the table between them. She looked at it. She looked at him. "It is good to see you, Jonas." "It is good to see you, ma'am." The 11 days went like this. On the second day, Adelaide Mercer drove up the mountain to Reeve Hollow and sat at the long pine table with Marin for 4 hours and asked her every question a lawyer can ask a young woman about her marriage, her husband, her mother-in-law, her hospital visits, her bruises, her son. Marin answered every one of them. She did not cry. She did not look away. On the third day, Adelaide had the hospital records. 3 emergency room visits in 18 months, a broken wrist that had been logged as a fall on ice, a fractured cheekbone that had been logged as a kitchen accident, a set of cracked ribs that had not been logged as anything because Spencer Pierce had paid the on-call doctor in cash, and the on-call doctor had a gambling problem in Reno that he did not wish his wife to know about. On the 5th day, Marin's coworker from the diner, a woman in her 40s named Brenda Avila, drove up the mountain herself in a green pickup and brought a notebook of dates. Brenda had been keeping the notebook since the second time Spencer had come in drunk and grabbed Marin by the wrist in front of the lunch counter. Brenda had kept the notebook for 22 months. The notebook had 31 entries. On the 7th day, Wade Boone left at 5 in the morning and drove 2 counties east to a roadhouse near the railroad in a small town called Granger, and he drank a single cup of coffee at the counter and he waited. At 10:15, Royce Meade walked through the door. Wade waited until Royce had sat down. Wade walked over. Wade sat down across from him. "Royce." Royce went pale. "Wade, you have got a wife and 2 kids, Royce." "Yes. You have been used. You know that. You knew the second you read tomorrow's paper. You are about to be the man who left a young mother and a baby in a storm. Your wife is going to read it. Your kids are going to read it. And the woman who paid you is going to be in court next Tuesday saying she has never heard your name in her life. Royce stared at him. She is going to throw you to the wolves, Royce. I know. You knew that morning, did you not? I had a feeling, Wade. I had a bad feeling. What did you do about it? Royce reached into his coat pocket. He laid a small black voice recorder on the table between them. Cheap. The kind a man buys at a truck stop for $19. I recorded her, Wade. The morning she told me to do it, I had a bad feeling. I put it in my pocket and I turned it on before I went into her study, and I kept it on the whole time she talked to me. Wade looked at the recorder. He looked at Royce. All right, Wade said. All right, Royce. You are going to come with me. You are going to come with me right now, and you are going to drive your own truck, and you are going to follow me to a house in Cheyenne. And you are going to sit down with a lawyer named Adelaide Mercer, and you are going to play her what is on that recording. And then on Tuesday morning, Royce, you are going to walk into a courtroom in Pinedale. And you are going to play it for a judge. You understand me? Royce looked down at his coffee. He looked up. Yes, Wade, stand up. He stood up. The 7th of April was a Tuesday, and the snow was off the meadow, and the cottonwoods along the creek behind the courthouse had the first green of the year on them, and the courtroom in the Subboldt County Courthouse was full by 9 o'clock. The press was there, 3 papers, 1 television crew from Casper. Diane Pierce had made sure of it. She walked in at 5 minutes past 9 in a black coat over a charcoal dress, a single small gold pin on the collar. Her hair pinned up the way she had worn it for 40 years, and she did not look at Marin Whitfield once. Marin wore a borrowed blue sweater that Hattie had pressed for her at 5 that morning. She wore jeans and clean boots. She wore her hair down. She sat at the table beside Adelaide Mercer with her hands folded in front of her, and she did not look at Diane Pierce either. Eli was in the back of the gallery in Hattie's arms. Wade Boone was beside them. Sam Foster, the deputy, was standing against the back wall in his uniform, hat in his hand. Jonas Reeves sat in the first row directly behind Marin, his hands flat on his knees. Judge Voss took the bench at 9:15. He was a small man with a small mouth, and Adelaide Mercer watched him take the bench in the way a person watches a snake that has not noticed her yet. Diane Pierce's attorney spoke for an hour and 10 minutes. He spoke of a grieving young widow who had broken down in the wake of her husband's death. He spoke of a worried grandmother who had been searching for her grandchild for 3 weeks. He spoke of a reclusive rancher with a tragic history who had taken a confused mother and her baby up onto an isolated property and had not contacted authorities. He used the word harboring 11 times. He used the word unstable 9 times. He used the word fragile 6 times. The reporters wrote it all down. When he sat down, Diane Pierce dabbed at her eyes with a black-edged handkerchief, and Judge Voss looked at Adelaide Mercer over the top of his glasses, and Adelaide Mercer stood. Your Honor, I would like to call Mrs. Diane Pierce to the stand. The courtroom shifted. Diane Pierce's attorney was on his feet. Your Honor, the petitioner, counselor, Adelaide said without looking at him. The petitioner has just told this court a story about a missing grandchild and a frantic search. I would like to ask the petitioner to walk this court through that search. Surely she will not object to answering questions about the search she has just described. Judge Voss hesitated. Mrs. Pierce will take the stand, he said finally. Diane Pierce stood up. She walked to the witness chair. She sat down. She put her hand on the Bible. She swore. Adelaide Mercer walked across the courtroom slowly, in the way that women who have spent 44 years in courtrooms walk when they have already won and are only making sure the other side knows it. Mrs. Pierce, you testified through your counsel that you have been searching for your daughter-in-law and grandson for 3 weeks. Yes. Could you tell this court the date you filed a missing person report? A pause. I did not file a missing person report. Mrs. Pierce, in 3 weeks, did you contact the sheriff's office in Subbolk County? No. Did you contact the sheriff's office in any neighboring county? No. Did you contact the state police? No. Did you hire a private investigator? A longer pause. No, Mrs. Pierce. On the morning of March 17th, who drove your daughter-in-law and grandson up the mountain road that leads past Reeve Hollow toward the Bondurant Cutoff? Diane Pierce's face did not change. Her eyes did. I do not know what you are referring to. You do not know who was driving the truck that took your daughter-in-law up that road. I do not know that there was such a truck. You do not employ a man by the name of Royce Meade. Another pause. Royce Meade has done occasional work for our family. Mrs. Pierce, on the morning of March 17th. Did you instruct Royce Meade to drive your daughter-in-law and grandson up that mountain road and leave them? I did not. Adelaide Mercer nodded slowly. She walked back to her table. She picked up the small black voice recorder. She walked back across the courtroom, and she set it on the rail of the witness stand. Your Honor, I would like to play a recording for the court. The recording was made on the morning of March 17th by Mr. Royce Meade, who is presently in the gallery and who is prepared to testify under oath as to the recording's authenticity. The recording is approximately 3 minutes in length. Diane Pierce's attorney was on his feet. So was Diane Pierce. Judge Voss looked at the recorder. He looked at Adelaide Mercer. He looked at Diane Pierce on the stand. He hesitated for what felt to Maren Whitfield like the longest second of her life. Play it, Judge Voss said. Adelaide Mercer pressed the button. Diane Pierce's voice came out of the small speaker, clear, calm, the voice she used at the country club. Take the wagon road past the second cattle guard. Drop her there. Both of them. Do not stop. Do not look back. The storm will handle it. If anyone asks, you have not seen her since Friday. Do you understand me, Royce? The courtroom did not move. The reporters wrote nothing. They had stopped writing. Adelaide Mercer pressed the button. The recorder stopped. She picked it up. She walked back to her table. She set it down. She turned around. Your Honor, the respondent calls Mr. Royce Meade. Royce Meade walked to the stand. He sat down. He put his hand on the Bible. He swore. He testified for 14 minutes, plain and slow, the way a man testifies when he has decided he has nothing left to lose. He told everything. He told the morning. He told the road. He told the door. He told the words he doesn't want either of you. And he said them as Diane Pierce had told him to say them, and he said he had been ashamed every day since. When he stepped down, Judge Voss looked at Adelaide Mercer. Counselor, Your Honor, the respondent calls Miss Maren Whitfield. Maren stood up. Her hands were shaking. She walked the longest 14 feet of her life. She climbed up into the witness chair. The bailiff held the Bible up to her. She put her hand on it. She swore to tell the truth. Judge Voss looked at her over his glasses. His face was different now. The small mouth had gone tight. He cleared his throat. Miss Whitfield. Yes, sir. This court has heard a great deal of evidence this morning. This court is not going to ask you to relive the road. This court is going to ask you one question, and you may take your time. Yes, sir. Miss Whitfield, if this court rules in your favor today and your son is placed in your custody, you will leave this courtroom with very little. You have no employment. You have no home of your own. You have, as I understand it, the kindness of strangers. What is it, Miss Whitfield, that you intend to give your son? Maren did not look at Diane Pierce. She did not look at Adelaide Mercer. She did not look at Jonas Reeve. She looked at Judge Voss. Sir, she said. Her voice was small. It did not waver. All I have got is my mother's quilt and the truth of who his daddy really was. I would rather give him those two things in a small house than what Mrs. Pierce wants to give him in a big one. That is my answer, sir. The courtroom did not breathe. Judge Voss took off his glasses. He set them on the bench. He pressed his thumb and forefinger to the bridge of his nose. When he looked up again, his eyes were not dry. His mouth was firm. This court is in recess for 30 minutes. The gavel came down. It did not come down like a hammer. It came down quietly, almost gently, the way a man closes a door he has finished walking through. 31 minutes later, Judge Voss returned to the bench, and he denied the petition for custody, and he granted Maren Whitfield full sole physical and legal custody of Eli Whitfield Pierce, and he entered a permanent order of protection against Diane Pierce. And he ordered the matter of Royce Meade's testimony and the recording forwarded to the office of the district attorney for review. Diane Pierce did not stand up. She did not move. The reporters wrote fast. In the gallery. Hattie Greer let out a small whoop. Wade Boone said something low under his breath in the way men say things they do not want repeated. Sam Foster against the back wall touched 2 fingers to the brim of his hat. Adelaide Mercer turned to Maren. She did not say congratulations. She said, "All right, now we are going home." Maren stood up. Her legs barely held her. Jonas Reeve was beside her before she finished standing, his hand light at her elbow. And they walked together out of the Subboldt County Courthouse into the cold, bright morning of the 7th of April. Spring came up the mountain slow that year, the way it always did at Reeve Hollow. In fits and starts, and one warm afternoon followed by 3 cold mornings. The snow went off the high pasture in the 2nd week of April. The cottonwoods along the creek leafed out in the 3rd week. By the 1st of May, Eli was walking 12 steps at a time, from the kitchen door to the porch rail and back. The quilt lay folded at the foot of the bed in the back bedroom. The small wooden cross stayed on the wall. Maren had not asked to take it down. Jonas had not asked her to. On a Tuesday in May, Jonas came up onto the back porch at the end of the day with 2 enamel mugs of coffee, and he sat down on the porch swing beside Maren Whitfield, and for a long time he did not say anything. The sun was going down behind the ridge. The corral was quiet. Down at the bunkhouse, Wade Boone was sitting on a stump teaching the new colt to take a piece of apple out of his palm. "Miss Whitfield." "Yes, sir." "I have a question." "Yes, sir." "You do not have to answer it tonight. You do not have to answer it next week. You can take all the time you want." She waited. "This is your house now if you want it to be. You and the boy, I am asking you to stay." Not the way a man asks a woman a thing he wants from her. The way a man asks a woman if she will let him be the one to keep the door open. "You understand me?" Maren looked out at the corral. She looked at Wade and the colt. She looked down at the small wooden horse Wade had carved that was lying on the porch rail beside her coffee. She thought about her mother. She thought about the apartment over the bakery. She thought about a road in March and a pair of headlights coming around the bend. "Yes," she said. Jonas nodded once. He did not reach for her hand. He set his coffee down on the porch beside him, and he looked out at the ridge and the last light coming off the pines, and he said, "All right." That was all he said. Later, after supper, after Hattie had wiped the table and Wade had gone back to the bunkhouse, and Eli had been put down in the small bed in the back bedroom, Maren stood for a moment in the doorway and watched her son sleep. The quilt was over him. His small hand was curled around the corner of it. On the wall above the dresser, the small wooden cross caught the last of the light through the window, and the light went red, and then purple, and then the room was dark. She thought about something her mother had told her once when she was a little girl in the apartment over the bakery, sitting on the kitchen floor while Rose Whitfield rolled out dough on the counter above her. "A door is not measured by how big it is," her mother had said. "A door is measured by who opens it when the storm is on the other side." Maren had been 6. She had not understood. She had asked her mother what it meant. Her mother had laughed and said, "You will know someday, baby. The Lord will show you." She knew now. The Pierce house in Pinedale had been a fortress of stone and money and good name, but a fortress was only stones stacked against the wind. A door was something else. A door was a choice. A door was a man who pulled over on a mountain road in a storm and bent down on his knees in the snow and called a stranger ma'am and lifted her up out of the cold. A door was a small wooden cross left hanging on the wall because the man who had hung it there had decided one night that a room closed for 8 years could open for a baby he had never met. Marin closed her son's door softly. She walked back down the hall. In the kitchen, the kettle had begun to whistle on the stove. Hattie had put it on before she left for the night and forgotten it. Marin walked to the stove. She lifted the kettle off the burner. She set it on the cool side of the iron. She turned off the light. Outside on the porch, a fiddle was playing a slow tune from the radio in the bunkhouse, and the wind was moving through the pines. And somewhere down by the corral, the new colt nickered once, and the wide, cold Wyoming sky over Reeve Hollow filled up slow with stars. A young mother who had once been left on a road in a storm sat down on the porch swing beside a man who had stopped his truck for her, and she did not feel unwanted, and she did not feel afraid, and she did not feel alone. She felt loved. She was loved, she was home,